Yeah. Hello. It's okay, madam. Actually, your voice is not clear. So I'll continue with the sir's introduction. So, CA Dr. N.A. Charantimat sir, he's a well-known chartered accountant since 36 years, founded CA firm Major Charantimat Associates, and he is the chairman of IMS B School, Hubli. So with this brief introduction, I would like to welcome today's speaker and the chairman of IMS B School to today's state level webinar on personal financial management. Welcome you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. So now I
Hello,
would like to
Suvarna madam.
now I would
Yes,
like
yes.
to Professor Shailaja Huddar to deliver the introduction to webinar.
Good morning, sir. Am I audible? Hello,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
am I
You are
audible?
audible. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, everybody. Today we have organized yes, ma'am. Today we have organized state level webinar on personal financial management by inviting our association with IMS B School Hubli, by inviting Charantimat sir, chartered accountant, and the founder of IMS B School Hubli. It is very glad for us that Charantimat sir has accepted our invitation as a resource person to the webinar. And sir has also suggested us that the technical assistance from their side. So it is very, we are very grateful to you, sir, for given a technical assistance, and also the helping hands. We all together successfully can conduct the webinar on personal financial management. And in is the knowledge and state quality assurance cell. Through that, we are all doing the activity, and it is nothing but to strengthen the faculty. This is nothing to do with government and private employees. This is the exchange of ideas, exchange of the information of all the faculties or academics in the this one in academics. So which we collaboratively conducted, and we hope it would be successful. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we'll move to the session of today's state level webinar on personal financial management. Now I request CA Dr. N.A. Charantimat sir, chairman of IMS B School, to handle the session. So please unmute your call, sir. Hello, sir. So please unmute your call, sir.
Yes, madam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Hello, sir. Yes. Hello. No, again it has muted. No, sir. You're not audible, sir. You are muted your call.
Yes.
Yes,
Is
sir.
it clear now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Clear. Okay. So again, as I was telling that this particular webinar is organized by Government First Grade College of Kalgatti in association with our IMSB school. And the topic chosen today is personal financial management, which is very important for all the faculty members who are not only participating in the webinar, but also to all other persons who are earning. The personal financial management subject is a professional subject, and it is required to be understood by everybody, as it is directly and indirectly affecting everyone. At the outset, I thank the principal of Government First Grade College and Professor Sailaja Huddar and all other galaxy of faculty of First Grade College, as well as our faculty members led by Dr. Patil and Professor Suvarna Hiremat and all other dignitaries in our college for making this particular webinar on the personal financial management. So as far as the subject is concerned, I would like to dwell upon in a very simple manner so that everybody would take it forward in managing their financial affairs. So at the very outset, anyone can question what is personal financial management. So personal financial management is dealing with all the affairs pertaining to managing the finance, which include managing your savings, managing your long-term investments, managing your short-term investments, and also manage debt, and also preparing the respective budgetary statement or the statement of budget, and minimizing the risk in the managing your finance, and finally utilizing the finance for your peaceful living and growth. So personal financial management is a subject applicable to mainly individuals or a unit of a family or a group of persons in the family. And this personal financial management is not designed or devised today's deliberations so far as the business units are concerned, or corporates are concerned, or the government or institutionals. So my talk is going to be centric only on the dealing with the financial management as far as the individuals or the family members or the group of individuals. So in the discussion, anything pertaining to financial management of the government or the corporate or the business houses and other institutions are not at all covered. So that is the first point I would like to make it very clear. So finance, as I said, is concerned about all these affairs. As I said, the savings, investment, and preparing a budget, and also minimizing the risk of handling finance and earning more returns from the financial activity or the investment activity. And finally, how to use finance for peaceful living. So this is the all about requirement as far as the financial management is concerned. So then another question is immediately posed as to what are the objectives of the financial management. As far as the individuals and family members are concerned, or group of individuals are concerned, what shall be the objectives of the financial management? So the main objective of the financial management is to ensure stability in managing the financial affairs. There must be consistency. At the same time, there must be a proper growth in the financial aspects which are managed by the individuals as well as the family members or the group of individuals. So stability is the first objectives of the financial management. Then the second objective of the financial management is to ensure proper financial goals. Unless you have a proper financial goals, it would be very difficult to manage your finance effectively as well as logically. Therefore, you must have a financial goals well advanced, determined, so that you can make your efforts of financial arrangement in such a way as to reach the goals. Then another objective of the financial management is to have better cash flow management. So ultimately you need cash or you need cash flows. You have to manage the cash flow, both receipts as well as the expenditures. That is, we call it as revenue earnings as well as the expenditures. So cash flow effective management is also one of the objectives of the financial management. Then you have the last but not the least one is minimizing the risks. So there are so many risks involved in your savings, investment activity, purchase of assets, or incurring a major expenditures. So how to minimize the risk? So you must know how to trade off between the risk and the return. So these are the few of the immediate objectives of the financial management, which are more relevant only to the individuals as well as the group of individuals or the members of the family. So in order to make the subject very clear and also to drive you all to the simple way of understanding the personal financial management, I would like to narrate in the coming time that there are 8 important steps in personal financial management. In other words, if you follow 8 simple steps in personal financial management, you would be able to manage your finance professionally as well as effectively and also in a peaceful manner. So there may be more steps beyond 8 numbers. There may be even up to 50 steps, 100 steps, but that is not required to be understood in today's webinar deliberations, because you have to carry the important aspects of personal financial management in a lucid as well as in a clarion manner. Therefore, I thought fit to consider only 8, which are very significant steps in managing your personal financial affairs. The first and the foremost is you must prepare a budget. As you know, some of you or most of you must be the faculty of the finance and commerce. You are full aware of the budget. Normally, budget is a document which is prepared by the organizations, maybe colleges, universities, government, non-governmental organizations, companies, and even the state governments, and so on and so forth. Preparation of a budget in a professional manner generally is not done in the personal financial management or concern. Normally, I'm telling normally, there may be 40-50% of the people, they might prepare a budget. But generally, people are not resorting to preparation of a budget. But in order to ensure scientific way of managing your finance and also enjoy the financial resources in a effective manner and also peacefully, I always advise as a chartered accountant to prepare a budget. So budget is what? Is a statement containing the anticipated expenditures of a particular individual or a family or a group of individual over a period of time. It may be 1 year, it may be 6 months, like that. So it is an anticipation of the expenditures that are likely to be incurred over a period of time. Having anticipated the expenditure and checked out the same, you have to ascertain the resources for meeting those expenditures. That is called money available for meeting those expenditures. So budget is nothing but a statement prepared for a particular period, maybe normally 1 year, wherein expenditures are anticipated. In order to match the expenditures, the revenues are recognized or revenues are linked. So it is nothing but a matching statement where the expenditures, how you are going to incur, are going to be matched by the resources that are available at your command. So I advise in the form of a individual's preparation of the budget is concerned that they should resort into surplus budget. In government and other corporate and other non-governmental organizations, there may be a deficit budget. But as far as the individuals are concerned, group of individuals are concerned, family members are concerned, I always advocate on the surplus budget. What do you mean by surplus budget? Surplus budget means a state of affairs where your revenue collection is exceeding the expenditures. So if your revenue earned are going to be earned in a period of 1 year is not exceeding the is exceeding the expenditure likely to be incurred, then you end up in a situation of a surplus. It is called a surplus budget. On the contrary, if your expenditures are more than the revenue that you are going to garner over a period of 1 year, you end up in what is called as a situation of a deficit financing. So far as the individuals are concerned, we should not aim to have a deficit financing. Means you should not run out of the cash shortage anytime or cash flow problems anytime and every time. You should have a what is called as a surplus budget. So I have mentioned to you about the budget. Budget is a statement of expenditures and revenue to meet those expenditures over a point of time, maybe normally 1 year or less than 1 year. And you have to have the situation of either surplus budget or a deficit budget. So generally, as I said, we should prefer as individuals to have a surplus budget. Unlike government, non-government and corporate business houses, where there may be deficit budget also being arrived at over a period of time or for a particular period of time. So that is about a budget. I hope it is very clear to you. Now, as I said, the first step itself is to have a budget. Why you should prepare a budget? I would like to give an example of a ordinary or a simple professor who is a medium placed professor having around 10 years or 12 years experience as in teaching. He may be having a budget of say about 15 lakh rupees per year. Means he may be earning around 15 lakh rupees over a period of time, 1 year, and he might have made in a budget for 15 lakh rupees. How he is going to meet that 15 lakh rupees budget? Say assume 3 lakh rupees is going to be his other income like rental income, interest on bank deposit, other incentives, or examination work fees or consultancy fees like that. Another 12 lakh rupees may be his salary, which he is getting around 1 lakh rupees per month for 12 months. So if you match this revenue of 12 lakh rupees and 3 lakh rupees aggregating to 15 lakh rupees, it just matches your budget of rupees 15 lakh. So in this case, if I give an example that you have earned around 18 lakhs, whereas you are going to spend only 15 lakh rupees over a period of time, say 1 year, you will have a surplus of 3 lakh rupees. And vice versa. Supposing you earn 15 lakh rupees and spend 18 lakh rupees, you might end up with a deficit financing of rupees 3 lakh rupees. 3 lakh rupee deficit means you have to meet either by raising a new debt or you have to postpone your obligations of finance or financial expenditures would get postponed till you reach that 3 lakh rupees. So as I was advocating and also now also I'm stressing that you should aim for a surplus budget. So this is one example to illustrate you regarding the budget. Then why budget should be prepared? As I said, your strategy of spending, strategy for saving, strategy for better earning would be very clear when you go for a budget. Budget is nothing but a roadmap. If you have a roadmap, then you can definitely go. if you do not have a proper roadmap, you will not be able to reach the particular destiny. Therefore, budget is just giving a documentary approach as far as the clarity in spending and also your earnings. Therefore, everybody has to prepare a budget. Some people prepare a budget, manually. They just make a scribble a particular piece of paper on a piece of paper on the very first or second of the April of each year, that is beginning of the financial year, and they take it forward after discussing with the family members also. That is also fine. In whatever manner you want, you can prepare it. But first step is very important in effective personal financial management is you have to prepare a budget. And this budget can be discussed with your family members, because normally finance is such a issue which is around 70-80% is not discussed with the family members. That is not a correct approach, because you have to discuss your financial affairs with the family members. As you go on discussing, so many newer ideas will also come from others, so that you can fine tune the budgetary statement and you can work it accordingly for implementation of the budgeted actions over a period of time. So that is about a budget. And the second most important step is you have to determine your financial goal. What shall be your financial goal? In case of individual, how a financial goal can be determined? Say, take for example, effective earning of a particular professional, say teaching, or a teacher or a professor, say about 30 years. So in a period of 30 years, you have to plan your life cycle, financial life cycle. So you have to prepare your financial goals. Say, for example, first 10 year, your job is to stabilize your earning and make a headway in the department or the educational institution, and make known that you are an indispensable person in the institution. Therefore, in 10 years' time, you would get more revenue in the form of a stabilized salary and increments, incentives, all that you will get it. So first 10 year normally financial goal is to just manage your financial affairs in such a way that you meet your ends properly without wasting of your financial resources. So after 10 year, what happens? Next 10 year, you have to plan your financial goal. There may be need for getting a house built, one residential house building activity, that may be your financial goal. So that is also maybe after 10 year, during next 15 year or next 10 year period, block of 10 years, you must have a house. So how to arrange fund for the house building activity, that may be your financial goal. And next during say about next 10 years, that is around before 20 years, you may have the plan of financial plan of getting your son educated abroad or here only in India, better institutions, better universities, where you may have to spend more money. So how to arrange that money, how to organize that particular funding so far as big ticket education of your children. So that may be another financial goal. Similarly, there may be you going abroad for some other activity, or taking a lean on your job and go for 2 years overseas training or overseas lecturing or assignments, or you may be deputed to in the same India, same country, a university, where you can take up some other challenging assignments. So that may be your one activity wherein you have to make your financial goal very clear, like that. Then the last phase of your 10 years of your earning, you need to plan on a stabilized manner, how we can stabilize your earnings, how you can make a best use of your savings, how you can use the long-term investments made, all that you can think of. Those are all the things called, the next third decade, that is third decade of planning as far as the financial matters are concerned. So these are some of the financial goals. So you have to always keep some goals regarding the financial matters so that you can work on it to reach. And in the first year, 10 year block, you may aim to take a car, wherein you may get around 10 to 15 lakh rupees car. So for that also you need to arrange funding. So therefore, that is also a goal of owning a car, how to arrange the funding of finance for the purchase of the car, how much to invest in out of savings, how much you have to take loan, like that. Similarly, how much you have to invest your savings for constructing a house, how much loan you can take, so that you can get some benefits in the income tax law, which I can tell later on. Like that. So in case you want to depute your children abroad, foreign loans are available, education loans are available. You can take some portion from the bank, some portion you can meet out of your savings. So these are a few of the important financial goals you need to determine when you go for the managing your personal financial aspects or financial affairs. So second and the most step is determine your financial goals. How to determine financial goals? Determination of your financial goals should be within your reach. You can't exceed your big goal without having a capacity to meet that goal. Say, for example, you would like to aim in the second phase of your earning, say, for example, 10 year is over, next 10 year, you are in the stage of earning, mid 10 year, that is, say, around 15th year, you would like to have a bungalow of 5 crore each. One bungalow, you should have 5 crore. This is a very ambitious project, which is a large financial goal, which may create some troubles to you, because getting 5 crore loan or 5 crore investment for your house, unless you have a sufficient savings, is okay. Otherwise, why do you have 5 crore investment on your house? So such type of goal should not be there. You can ideally devise maybe 75 lakh, 1 crore worth of a house like that, including all furnishings, everything. So don't go for a very large or a very unmanageable goal. So goal should be, it is said smart. It should be specific, it should be measurable, and it should be right, and it should be action oriented. You can implement that one. So always goal should be smart, as everybody says. Goal determined should be smart. So financial goal is required to be created in such a way that those goals are going to be achieved. Those goals are going to be realized without much efforts or without much strains. So if you go on taking more strains, it will affect on your professional standing and earning capabilities. Therefore, we should not aim to create a mess in achieving the goals. Therefore, goals should be smart, and it should be implementable, and it should be effective as possible as far as your financial capability is concerned, earning stream is concerned, and your living conditions are concerned, and your status in the society. So second step, as I said, determine your financial goals. Then I come to third one, most important as far as any individual, is about the third step in the personal financial management is you have to determine your saving strategy. Savings is the lifeblood of any individual. Savings are going to determine your financial stability. If you have better inclination towards savings, it would help you to plan your affairs effectively. So savings should be given as the best strategy as far as your personal finance is concerned. So India was having a personal savings to the tune of around 33-34% of GDP, household savings around 20 years, 15 years back. Now, because of the changed pattern of living and expenditure pattern also increased, and mounting expenditure on FMCG products, and also a lot of comfort level has come in the living standards, the savings rate has dropped domestically. Domestic savings last year, it was around 10%. Now this year, it is likely to be around 8%. That is household savings of the people. So, but what I would like to say, that a particular individual should have a aim of saving. What shall be the aim of his saving, or what shall be his objective of saving, or what shall be his ceiling of saving? So there is no hard and fast rule, nor the formula to ensure better savings. By thumb impression or by thumb rule, somebody say savings at the rate of 20% of the gross salary may be suffice. The thumb rule, somebody says 20% or 25% of the gross salary of a particular year must be your savings. That is apart from your Provident Fund and all. Because Provident Fund is deducted from your salary, you get only net salary. So that is out of your reach. That is done by the employer on behalf of you as per the obligation and as per the compliance of the law. So apart from your Provident Fund, your other savings should be at least 20% of the gross salary. Higher saving is possible. You may reach 30%, you may reach sometimes 40%. That is okay, based on your expenditure, based on your comfort in living and all. So saving strategy should be the important step in the personal financial management. Then normally, bachelors would have more savings. Till they get married, normally their savings rate is very high. It may be even 40%, 50% of their gross take-home salary or take-home salary. Sometimes it may be very high rate so far as the bachelors are concerned. But as they go for marital status, building the house and other children education and so many other things, savings may become thin. So here comes how to have a effective saving. So for that purpose, lot of planning is required. Where to save your money? Say, assume you have aimed for 30% of your gross salary as savings. How I can earn more from savings? So you have to invest that money in a very systematic manner so that you can earn more from your savings, which I am going to talk in the next step. So please note, savings should be the thrust and it should be a requirement as far as personal financial management is concerned. It will help to make your financial affairs more stable, consistent, and also it would give more comforts in terms of emergency or any contingency plans or any natural calamity that has happened. So, they are going to happen, or already right now we are in the phase of COVID-19. Natural calamity is happening right now, a pandemic is there. So expenditures may be unforeseen, or sometimes you might not have planned the expenditures as regards contingency. Therefore, savings would help you to fill that particular gap. So it is always required to have a better saving strategy. Okay. Then there may be various tools of savings. Some have to decide whether to save entire money in a savings account only, which I don't advise, because savings bank account investment is not going to earn more than 4% or maximum 5%. Some banks have given 6.5%, 6.75%. For example, Yes Bank, what happened to the state of affairs of Yes Bank? Don't go for high returns in a savings bank account. So aim for a normal return, say 4 to 5%. There ends the matter. Some amount you can put in a FD, which will earn, say, about 7%, 6% for a period of 1 year. If it gets compounded, it may get 6.25% or 7.24%, like that. So depending upon the organization in which you are going to keep the FD, like that. So if you invest in, say, savings, you are in NSC, you may get around 8 years time to get your NSC doubled, like that. So these are the few tools where you can put your savings. So my idea to drive your attention is you must have a clarity in savings. Number one. Number two, you must have some percentage of your gross salary or whatever net take home salary as savings. As I said, 20%, 30%, whatever, based on your expenditure of living and comfort. And you have to have savings because that is helpful for maintaining your emergencies, meeting the contingencies, and also it will help you to make your financial planning stable and it will make you consistent. Therefore, even if you take away from your routine, say 6 months for some work, then you can make use of your savings and maintain your livelihood. So savings are very essential. Therefore, it is always determined as the third and the most important step in the personal financial management. Yes. Now, coming to the fourth step, There are 4 steps, as I said. 4th step is very significant. That is called your investment strategy. Personal financial management as a practice requires proper investment. So investment of your hard-earned money, either in the form of a short-term investment, medium-term investment, long-term investment, that should be well chalked out. Investment planning, investment execution, investment monitoring must be your watchwords. You can't just give money to somebody, he is managing my investment. That is not the way. You have to look into through the process of monitoring. Therefore, investment making, investment reviewing or monitoring, and investment corrective taking action. Sometimes there may be correction involved in the investment. Therefore, you have to take immediately corrective actions. So investments must be well managed, well reviewed, and well monitored so that you can keep your investments growing. So if you do not review the investments, whatever you have done, either for short term, medium term, or long term, you may lose money growth or investments growing. You may lose what is called as a value addition there. Therefore, you must monitor the investments. Now in India, there are various opportunities for investments. Which are the opportunities available for investments? You may think of investing some portion of your earnings, some portion of your savings into real estate. Everybody says real estate and immovable property investment is risky. Why it is risky? The risky is in terms of realization. If you want to sell the real estate, or you want to sell a plot, you want to sell a building or a commercial shop, it is very difficult to get the customers. It may take long period of time to realize. So in a period of say COVID, it is very difficult to get customers who have got ready money. So you have to wait for some time, 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, like that. You will have to hire brokers for or consultants for searching a buyer. So because of these involvements of steps, always people say investment in real estate is risky. You take IT guys, that is information technology professionals or biotechnology professionals or top executives of the corporates. They don't believe in investing real estate because they say it is very difficult to get money out of real estate. Therefore, they are not interested. Some people are not interested for the simple reason real estate involves secondary money. You have to have some 50% white money, 50% black money. Dealing with that one is also very tough. Therefore, they don't prefer. But anyway, one of the investment opportunities is there in real estate. So make a calculated steps in investing your amount in real estate. That is one available mode. Second available mode is a gold and ornaments. Today's gold rate is very high. Almost it has reached 45,000. That is per 10 grams, which is pure gold. Ornamental gold, there may be 42 to 43,000 rupees for 10 grams of ornaments. Gold rate is increasing. In a country like India, why gold rate increases? Whenever stock markets collapses, gold rate increases. Whenever real estate, there are no buyers, gold rate increases. Whenever banks are not giving a better interest on the FD, gold rate increases. So like that, because the yellow metal is always its own sensitive behavior. Therefore, this gold metal or the gold ornaments, definitely the valuation is quite different and the rates are also, as of now, it is skyrocketing. You can invest some of your money. Some of your money can be invested as gold ornaments because you have to live dignified way, maintain your social status. Therefore, you can use the ornaments. But some portion of your investment can be taken in gold, either in the form of a gold coin or a gold biscuit, we call it as, or a block, gold block, where you can sell whenever the rate is increased. There is nothing that you have to purchase gold and keep it. No, you can exit it whenever the rates are too good. You can sell it in the open market and very less tax you will pay on selling the gold with just 3% GST. No other commodity has such a lowest tax rate as far as selling is concerned. So therefore, you just pay 3% tax on the gold sale. 97% will be your white money, and you have to pay little income tax also, capital gain tax. Still, you will get more money. Capital gain tax may be around 20% if it is a long-term asset, more than 2-year holded gold. Less than 2-year holded gold, it may be 30% like that. So you can definitely earn more money in the form of selling the gold. So second most important is you can invest on the gold, both for your use as well as for your disposal of asset whenever you need money. Third one is investment in shares and mutual funds and systematic investment plans. So investment in shares is definitely a risky affair, because if you invest in shares, you have to manage the investment. You have to manage the shares. So at least weekly, twice you must look into what are the growth story as far as your investment in shares is concerned. You cannot entrust the entire shares management portfolio to some consultant like portfolio manager, where you can definitely depend on him for a long period of time. That may be okay, but whenever the share market is very fluctuating, sometimes dynamic market where the rates are up and rates are down overnight, and in a fraction of 5 minutes, crores and crores of money is lost in share markets. So after the COVID started in our country, from March last week to say 31st of May, you know how much money is lost in share market? Almost 34 lakh crores, which is equal to 1 year budget support of our union government. Individuals who invested in shares after the COVID, effect of the COVID, people sold the shares, panic, and investors from abroad, they withdrew investment. As a result, 34 lakh crore is wiped out in a period of, say, from March last week to 31st of May. So many a time you lose money. Just by blinking the eye, you lose the money. You will not be able to see the money. So therefore, invest in shares in such a way where you can manage. At least once or twice in a week, you must manage those shares. And you should keep on selling the shares, keep on purchasing the price if you are going to do a limited way of share trading. If you are not able to manage the shares, don't invest in shares. My best way is to ask you to invest in mutual funds. Because mutual funds, there are managers who can manage the mutual funds. They will take money from you. In a small way they take, they accumulate it, they invest in a larger portfolio in all the blue chip companies, large companies, medium companies, small companies in India and abroad. They manage the investment activity. They also bring some earning in the mutual fund investment. So therefore, it is easy to invest through mutual fund than investing in the shares. That is the one aspect. And mutual fund in today's context, it may give less return, maybe 5%, 6% like that. But in the peak period of, say, about 1 year back, 2 years back, 3 years back, mutual funds have given a growth rate of around 12% to 18%. Very ambitious projects of investment in mutual funds have given 24% return. But averaging it is better than the bank interest rate. Bank interest, assume it is 7% for 3 years FD. Mutual fund will definitely give around 12 to 13%, which is almost double the your interest earned on the fixed deposit. Mutual fund investment, because there is somebody who can manage that mutual fund. Since you cannot manage because you don't have that skill of managing, nor you have got that much time to devote on the mutual fund management, it is better to entrust that one to somebody who is called a mutual fund managers are there, who are very highly paid resource persons. They can track your investment and give a return. But mutual fund should be at least for a period of 5 years and onwards, 3 years onwards, 7 years onwards, so that you will get more earning from the investment in the mutual fund. Then there is one more via media has come, systematic investment plan. SIP it is called. SIP means systematic investment plan. You keep on investing monthly. As you get salary monthly, you keep 10,000 rupee investment in SIP. SIP means systematic investment plan. That money is invested and the amount is invested either in mutual fund or in shares or in government bonds or in debt earned funds or debt funds. So here also the return management is good. It's provided your SIP systematic investment plan is for 3 years and above, 5 years and above, 7 years and above, definitely you would get a fair return of say 11%, 12%, sometimes 14% like that. So these returns, of course, they are attracting tax now. And after the amendment, any dividend earned about 10 lakh rupees, that attracts a tax. So as I said, you can invest in real estate, you can invest in gold and ornaments, or you can invest in platinum, you can invest in silver, you can invest in what is called as shares, equity shares of limited company, or you can invest in the mutual funds, you can invest in the through the systematic investment plan, you can invest in fixed deposit of a bank, and you can invest in any other government bonds where return on bonds investment may be around 5 to 6%. If you want to take a safe investment route, you can do it like that. But ever I advise you to invest in private funds, private people, private organizations. Even if they assure you 18% return, 12% return, 15% return per year, 10% return per year, I am against investment because you may not get that money back as you wanted immediately. Or even if money is coming, but it may come with a strain. Therefore, private investment I am not recognizing as far as you people are concerned, because fixed earning income oriented people always should not take much risk. They should not be exposed to high risk. Therefore, don't invest in private firms, private organizations where money return may be more, but the investment carries a high risk. Therefore, 20% of the investment you may get it back, 80% may be difficult. If they go on paying you interest, they may not pay the principal also. So many things will happen in private arena. Therefore, I am advising not to go for a private investments. So there are so many investment opportunities available. You have to plan it your affairs in such a way that your finance is invested effectively in short term, medium term, and long term funds. Okay. Then, as I completed the fourth step in personal financial management, I would like to come to fifth step, that is called insurance management. Many a time, people, are not interested to get their insurance cover done. Many a time, they say we have got PF, we have got ESI, we have got group gratuity, we have got group insurance, like that. But having a minimum insurance is always desired. So insurance are of two kinds. One is term insurance. Term insurance is one where you have to keep on paying your premium for a particular fixed period of term. Say it may be 20-year term. You have to keep on paying premium, which is not so heavy burden oriented, and you can definitely get the the benefit of that particular safety cover. Term insurance only ensures safety. If any eventuality happens to the life of the individual, insurance company would come forward to pay the assured amount to the kith and kin or the legal representatives. Supposing assume you have taken 1 crore insurance called term insurance, wherein assume at the age of say 30 years, you may be paying around roughly 7 to 8,000 rupees per year. For making 7 to 8,000 rupees premium per year, you have got an insurance cover of 1 crore on the life of you. If anything happens, eventuality happens, then that 1 crore amount will be given to the kith and kin. So this is a safeguard of your relatives and family members who dependent on you. Here the risk of premium is involved, say about 8,000 rupees per year. And you have to keep on paying for 20 years. You don't get anything back, please note. Even if you survive for a period of 20 years, during the lifetime or the life term of the term policy, you won't get a single rupee. Only any casualty happens, the benefit will be given to the dependent members or the near and dear. So therefore, but this is a most important security to the life risk of any individual. So term insurance should be done as early as possible. Supposing at the age of 50 or age of 60, insurance policy like term insurance policy is very costly. For example, 50 years insurance premium may run into 40,000 rupees per year, 5 times of your 30 years age. If you take a term insurance at the age of 60, it may go to 70,000 rupees per year. If you take it around 64th year or 65 year, it may get around 1 lakh rupees premium. So as the age advances, risk gets more. Therefore, insurance premium also is high. Therefore, aim to have term insurance initially. Term insurance is for your family members and a security and a safety net. And it is nothing but a comfort level to the family members. It is a spent expenditure on premium. You will pay one time and you forget it also. But at the end of the period, you won't get anything. Beauty of this one is only if casualty happens, family members should get it, not during your lifetime. That is the term insurance. So one should have a minimum term insurance cover of 50 lakh, 25 lakh, 75 lakh, 1 crore, 2 crore, depending upon your earning, family need and family size, you can think of term insurance. The second important composite insurance is the endowment policy or insurance policies, normal insurance policies, there may be endowment policy, there may be money back policy, there may be a limited period payment premium policy, or you pay 5 years premium and take your policy back after 10 years. You take 10-year premium, pay 10-year premium, receive the premium amount as well as the sum assured after the end of 20 years like that. That is limited period premium and receiving back at the end of the term. Then maybe 15 years, 20 years, whatever, 25 years. So this is covering not only the risk, but also you get some bonus there. Insurance companies would also award every year bonus. It may be 4%, it may be 5%, it may be 6%. LIC of India, State Bank of India, and some other organizations. There are 26 insurance players in our country which are regulated by the Insurance Regulatory Authority of India. And the first one is, Life Insurance Corporation of India. Second one is the State Bank of India's life insurance, SBI Life. Third, probably ICICI Prudential is there. Fourth one is HDFC Life is there, like that. So these, you take all those 26 numbers and find out the rating. Based on that, whichever the best, you can invest. Here, one distinction among all the 26 insurance companies is that LIC of India, there is a government guarantee. Sovereign guarantee is there because it is owned by government of India. SBI Life is a corporation like a company. It is not government guaranteed. Please remember. So you can choose LIC of India. You can choose Life Insurance Corporation policies from HDFC, ICICI Prudential, which are corporations where the sovereign guarantee may not be there as that of a life insurance policies. So you must have insurance cover adequate. So how you can plan? Some insurance cover should be long range. You must have 30 years period, 25 years period. Keep on paying insurance. Some insurance must be payback oriented. 5 years period lock-in, 10 years lock-in, 15-year lock-in, 20 years lock-in. Because you can use that money when your children require either for education or for marriage, or you may require for house building, or you may require for some car purchase, you may require for foreign trip, you may require for any other pleasures and leisures also. Therefore, you can have any type of a policy. There are n number of policies available. Best way is you should understand. Unless you understand those policies, it is not possible to use the investment in insurance for your risk coverage. And of course, insurance premium is also eligible for income tax deduction under section 80C to the extent of rupees 1,50,000 per year, along with your other investments like home loan repayment and all those things, it. So I advise you to go for fifth step insurance, that is a better insurance cover should be there. Insurance cover should be ideally covered. It should not be over insurance oriented or under insurance oriented. It should be ideally covered. So what is the ideal cover? One is you should have a term insurance, maybe 50 lakh, 1 crore policy. Second one is you should have some endowment policy where you can get only after a period of 20 years, 30 years, like that. Money back policy, or some try to pay a limited period premium payment, and risk coverage will continue for some more period, like that. So sometimes single insurance premium also is there. You can pay only once insurance premium, risk continue to be there for a period of 5 years, 10 years. So all these type of insurance you should have it. Insurance cover of yourself, your spouse, as well as your family members should be done. Don't ignore other family members. Children insurance also is a must, because you can claim those expenditure in your calculation of your income tax yearly, and children risk also coverage is advisable from the family point of view. Therefore, fifth and the most important step in the personal financial management is manage your insurance and take the maximum insurance cover to minimize your risk. Okay. Now come to sixth important step is managing your taxes. India is a heavily taxed nation. It has a both the direct taxation high, indirect taxation also high. Now we have two taxes ruling in our country. One is the income tax, which you know, maximum rate of tax is 30% if your income exceeds 10 lakh rupees per year. And another tax is the GST, goods and service tax. Wherever you buy any item or any product or any service, you have to pay tax called GST, indirect tax. So consumers have to pay GST, whereas income earners have to pay income tax, personal income tax. So managing your tax is very significant. How to manage your tax? Managing the tax, of course, you have to pay as per the rule of the law, but you can minimize the effect of taxes on your income. In our country, up to 10 lakh rupees income tax level is very low. Income from 10 lakh to say 20 lakh rupees, tax burden may be little high. Anything above 20 lakh, 25 lakh, tax may be high. Above 50 lakh income, taxation definitely is high, like that. So above 1 crore, again, tax liability may be very high. So many a time you find the tax rates varying between 5% to 30% in our country. Cess is there 4%, you are aware of it. Now, how to minimize the tax is very significant step in personal financial management, because you must know every 1 rupee tax saved is equal to 1 rupee earned. If you save this year 10,000 rupees tax by proper planning, it is as good as you have earned 10,000 rupees income. So every penny of tax saved is equivalent to you have earned that money. So therefore, tax saving is very important in our country, and you have to manage your taxes in such a way that you end up in paying minimum taxes. Which are the ways available in tax planning? In personal financial management, tax planning is very significant. Which are the plans available? One, as I said, insurance. You can invest in your insurance policies. Get income tax deduction under Section 80C, 1,50,000 rupees. Assume you are in the tax bracket of 30%, you end up in saving 45,000 rupee tax every year. 30% of 1,50,000 every year, you save 45,000 rupee tax. So it means what? It means you have earned 45,000 rupees in each year. So like that it is. That is one investment in insurance policies, and you can pay the premium and get the deduction in the Income Tax Act. Then building a house. You want to build a house for your own use or letting out purpose. If you are staying in ancestor house, you want to let out the property which you have built. You get rent. Against the rental income, you can pay whatever the interest on loan taken to build your house. That entire interest is deductible from the rental income. If you take loan, build a house, and whatever rent you are getting, on that rent, you would get what is called as interest on loan fully deducted. Apart from 30% of your rent as deducted towards repairs and maintenance. That is called repairs and maintenance. That is called a standard deduction. So apart from that, you would be able to get interest on loan taken for the purpose of constructing a house, and you can deduct it from the rent. That is one part. You want to use the house for your self occupation. In that case, you can claim interest up to 2 lakh rupees per year. On 2 lakh rupees interest earned, interest paid, you are going to earn a tax income savings of rupees 30 into 2 lakh, 60,000 rupees tax you are going to save. So at least for a first 10 years, you will get a lot of savings of taxes as you have taken loan to build a house. That is called self-occupied property. You keep on saving. So that is the second method, as I said, to minimize the taxes. So don't postpone building a house. Don't start initially also. Just 5 years of joining the job, you don't start the house construction. Keep a plot ready. You can plan after 5 years, after 10 years, 8 years, like that, depending upon your availability. But don't postpone for a very long period of time. Say 20 years of service, 30 years of near retirement. After retirement, I'll have more time, no work. I can build house. That is very foolish idea. Don't do that. So try to start early. You can get maximum benefit of income tax also, and you can save a lot of taxes. So that is the second, as I said. Then you have got a medical insurance premium paid. Up to 25,000 rupees in a year, you can pay the insurance premium on medical expenditure of yourself, your spouse, and family members. You can claim that expenditure fully under the Income Tax Act. That is 80D. Section 80D of the Income Tax Act, you can claim up to 25,000 rupees per year. And if you are dependent, if you have got a dependent mother, father, or very near dependent on you, where you have to incur some expenditure of medicine or medical treatment, maybe illness of some sort of a paralysis or heart problem or any other disease like crippled or whatever, such type of a fatal and critical disease, you have to spend more money on that. These expenditure called as dependent expenditures, which you can claim it under the income tax law. Up to 1 lakh rupees, you can claim the expenditure, provided you produce a surgeon certificate from the district health officer that you need not attach to the income tax return. Keep it ready in your file. Whenever department asks, you can insist for uploading in the system. Otherwise, there is no need. So, dependent relative expenditure of medicine can be claimed up to 1 lakh rupees also. In case of serially ill patient like blind person or paralytic person, where his earning capacity is less and he is not able to walk, you can claim even up to 1,60,000 rupees per year, depending upon the certificate of the health officer. So these expenditures can be claimed in your return because they are dependent on you. You are supporting them. Therefore, you can claim in your income tax return. This is how we can save the tax. Assume you have not made any policy, but still you can claim preventive health maintenance expenditure up to 5,000 without any document. 5,000 blankly you can claim. If you are not claimed in last year return filing, this year you start claiming 5,000 rupees. 5,000 from your deduction of total income, because it is called preventive health expenditure. You can claim it like that. So on that also you will save a lot of tax. Then, standard deduction is available 50,000 rupees. Under the head income from salary, 50,000 is available to you to deduct. In case you have paid expenditure of your children for education, that expenditure is also allowable. You can claim it. The housing loan repayment, that it can be claimed as a clubbed item under section 80C. Out of 1,50,000, housing loan repayments are also covered. You can claim it. So similarly, you can claim those expenditures which are permitted under the income tax law. So tax saving must be most important agenda in your personal financial management. So you can consult experts in order to minimize the tax and file your return accordingly. And you can definitely get more savings of taxes. And supposing I would like to give one example. Assume your effective tax rate is 30% and 4% cess on that. So you are paying 31.2%. That is the rate of tax as per your income is concerned. You are liable to pay tax. If you do not make any planning, you will get just a basic exemption limit of 2,50,000, and up to 5 lakh rupee income you will get some rebate. There ends nothing. So you'll have to pay tax heavily. But you make all these planning, house building, interest deduction, LIC policies, then medical expenditures, preventive medical expenditure, education expense of your children, so on and so forth. Your effective rate of tax will be less. It may be 22%, it may be 23%. So whatever the savings you are going to make is the tax saved. Okay. So some of them are asking some sections, I think. So ATC is eligible so far as insurance premium is concerned. Housing loan repayments are covered in section 80C. 80D is for health expenditure, that is called health insurance policy, 25,000 rupees. Section 16, subsection 1 is standard deduction up to 50,000 rupees. Then profession tax paid also is covered under section 16. That is in the employment stage itself, we can claim it. Then 80DD is there. That is for the health expenditure of your dependent, section 80DD. There is one more section called 80DDB, where a dependent who is on your dependence of your income for his support of medical maintenance, he can claim, you can claim up to 1,50,000 or 1,60,000 also sometimes, based on the certificate of the surgeon. That is 80DDB. Who is a senior citizen can claim. The senior citizen means a dependent who is senior citizen. You can claim if you are supporting him. So like that, as I said, 80D, that is for medical expenditure up to 25,000. Then 80DD, that is your dependent non-senior citizen medical expenditure up to 1 lakh rupees. Then senior citizen who is dependent on you having a critical illness, against the certificate of a surgeon or a health officer, you can claim up to 1,60,000 maximum. Even sometimes you can claim 1,25,000 depending upon the certificate given by the district surgeon or a district health officer, like that. So you have got lot of deductions available. And for children education expenditure, 80E is there, where you can claim 80EE children education expenditure, you can claim it. At least the expenditure paid other than donation, please note. If you give donation to your child for admission, that is not allowed. If you give capitation fees every year, building fund, other fund, not allowed. Only tuition expenditure or what is called as classroom fees, that is allowed. So you can claim. Similarly, traveling expenditure, you can claim traveling expenditure under section 10 into bracket 14 up to 19,000 rupees per year. You can claim. That is traveling expenditure. If traveling expenditure is not given in your employment, please remember the salary receipt. If traveling expenses is not reimbursed, you can claim this expenditure. That is an expenditure incurred for traveling from your house to office and office to house back. You can claim some expenditure of 1,600 per month, where proof is not required. Only thing is your employer should not reimburse this expenditure. If reimbursement is there, then you cannot claim, like that. Similarly, house rent allowance. If house rent is given by your employer, you can claim house rent as an expenditure. That also you can claim it under that salary, or you can claim it also under the head deduction under section 80GZ. That is, if you pay rent outside, and you can claim that expenditure also if you do not stay in your own house. Here condition is you must make the payment of rent, and you have to have a receipt for it. Keep it known to send it to income tax department. Whenever they ask, you can produce it. That way it is. So friends, you can make all these planning effectively so far as the saving of your tax is concerned. That is the sixth important step in the travel expenditure somebody is asking. So travel expenditure, if you are incurring for your travel purpose from your house to office, office to house, you can claim 1,600 rupees per month under section 10 into bracket 14 of the Income Tax Act. That is an exempted allowance. You can claim it as a exempted or deductible allowance. Supposing if your employer is not paying any traveling allowance, you can claim this expenditure out of your gross salary. That is the point. Here receipt is not required. It is only self-declaration base. And if you give donation to some charitable purpose or some education institution, you can claim a donation deduction under section 80G to the extent of 50% of actual donation. For COVID purpose, assume you have given say 25,000 rupees donation to B.S. Yediyurappa, that is Chief Minister's fund. And another 50,000 assume you have given to Prime Minister's PM Care Fund. Here is you are eligible to get 50% of the deduction for whatever the amount you have given to Chief Minister. And whatever the amount you have given to Prime Minister, 100% of donation you can claim it in your taxable income. Donation deduction is allowed under section 80G of the Income Tax Act. So 50,000, 100% is allowed because it is a natural calamity. Chief Minister rise up now, it is 50% allowed. And our Chief Minister has asked a clarification from the Finance Minister, Union Government, asking them also to contribute eligible the contribution at 100%, but they are yet to give clarification. Therefore, 50% is right now assured. 50% of actual donation made to Chief Minister's fund, calamity fund of COVID, and 100% of actual donation made to Prime PM of the Income Tax Act. Okay. So you can save a lot. So best way is make a list. Not if you are not available here, 2020, this year of 2020-21, you would be able to save a lot of tax in the coming year. That is for assessment year 21-22. So tax planning you should do effectively and minimize your tax because you are earned. Therefore, tax savings should be minimum. Therefore, tax savings should be more and minimum tax payments should be there. Therefore, your effective rate of tax should be less. Though law says 31.2% on income exceeding 10 lakh rupees, but your effective rate of tax paid should be less. What is the meaning of effective rate paid? Effective tax rate, how it is calculated? Total taxes paid in a year divided by your total income into 100, you will find effective tax rate. Total tax paid in a year divided by total income of that year, taxable income I am telling, total taxable income of that year into 100, you will find effective tax rate. It may be 21%, it may be 20%, it may be 15%, 18%. It means what? Even though you are paying tax as per law 31.2%, supposed to pay tax, but your effective tax rate is just 20%. It means you have saved 11.2%. 31.2% minus 20%. 11.2% of your taxable income you have saved. So that is the meaning. So ensure effective tax rate is less than the maximum rate of tax fixed, that is 31.2% in our country. Okay. Then coming to 6th step is over. Coming to 7th step. What is the important 7th step in personal financial management? You have to use your wealth earned judiciously. What is wealth? Wealth is a sum of investment made in all assets. Short-term asset, long-term asset, medium-term assets. It is nothing but a sum of all your assets. Minus loans is nothing but your wealth. So what I am telling you, use your wealth judiciously, and whatever wealth you have earned, you have to use it effectively. So if you do not use your wealth effectively, then there is not going to be a good financial management. Therefore, personal financial management of an individual requires utilize your wealth effectively, more so judiciously. Means some thing you can invest. Like for example, I would like to give one principle of investment, which is told by leading investor of the world, who is from America, Mr. Warren Buffett. your eggs in one basket. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. He said rather put your eggs in different baskets. Maybe 5 baskets, 10 baskets like that. The idea is if you put all your eggs in one basket, because of aggression of the eggs, you may lose those eggs. In a sense, you may lose the money. If you put all your investments in one go, you may lose. Therefore, diversify the investment and put your investment in different assets creation. That is helping you to minimize the risk, maximize your wealth. Therefore, he says, put all your eggs in different baskets and use it more judiciously so that you can multiply the wealth. The biggest wealthier person of our world, and I think probably is coming within 5 of the top from the investors. Gathered about only first $1 million. First $1 million in his initial career of 40 years, first or second year of his career, then $1 million only he was monitoring effectively. After he reaching 1 million to 10 million, he managed. After 10 million, he never managed. Money itself got managed. Money itself got multiplied. So money gets money. Money gets multiplication effect. Provided you use the wealth judiciously. Therefore, the 7th important step in the financial management, especially personal financial management, is use your wealth earned effectively, put your investment judiciously in short-term, long-term, medium-term assets, and use that particular wealth with minimum risk and maximum return. So what is the watchword in personal financial management? Manage your risk, thereby you minimize it. Manage your return, thereby maximize it. So minimizing the risk, maximizing the return on your investment, that is the watchword in the financial management. So that is the 7th important step. And last important step in the personal financial management is have a proper retirement plan. Many people are worried about retirement. Nobody should worry about retirement. Retirement is important and a final stage of life of any person. It should be received as it comes. Everybody has to retire. 60 years, 62 years, whatever the age limit fixed. Retirement should be taken as important step in the personal life of the any individual. He should not take a shock from the retirement. On the contrary, he should get a surprise, and every day he should get a pleasantries of retirement. And as you go on living effectively, happily, peacefully, purposefully with your family members, contributing your bit of might to the society, you will be more generous people and friendly people. Therefore, utilize your retirement effectively and plan your retirement successfully. Yes. So 8th important financial planning in personal financial management is proper retirement plan must be in place. So it means what? Don't exhaust your entire funds during your running time. You utilize it when you retire. Supposing at the age of retirement, say 60 years, one average person may get 35 lakhs. Some extraordinary person may get 1 crore. Still, a very extraordinary person may get 2 crore, depending upon income earning level and his things. So you have to use that money judiciously for the rest of your lives. And those who are dependent on you, you have to utilize it also. Therefore, you have to have a proper planning. So as I said, one of the financial planning goal is to have also some money, some substantial amount also for retirement purpose. How much is sufficient? For some, it may be 25 lakh. For some, it may be 50 lakh. For some, it may be 1 crore. For some, it may be 2 crore. Some, it may be 5 crore. For a few large-hearted people, where they want big, they may get 10 crore also. So their budget may be 10 crore at the time of retirement, 5 crore at the time of retirement, 2 crore at the time of retirement, like that. So this money, you should plan it very well. And therefore, succession planning Immediately after your servicing over, you will get into retirement age and stage. So as you go into age and stage of retirement, you must have surplus money. You should not run pillar to post to get money. As you used to get monthly money, you should not run that way. You should get money sitting at your own home. Proper arrangement should have been made. Proper rent income, proper interest income, proper dividend income, matured policy income of the policy, LIC policies, term insurance, of course, you won't get anything like that. So you must get all the returns matured at the time of retirement, and that money can be accumulated in order to maintain your livelihood for the rest of the life. So proper retirement planning is possible provided you have a proper goals in finance, proper budgeting, proper investment in short term and long term modes, proper savings, and proper taxation management, and also minimizing the risk of investment. If you take all these 7 or 8 steps effectively, 7 steps effectively, 8 steps will be wonderful. That is called proper planning for your retirement stage. So you must peacefully retire and you must peacefully enjoy the life after retirement. So whatever you earned, you must use it effectively. So best way is use your wealth during your lifetime. Don't keep your wealth to your near and dear kith and kin, and don't starve to use that wealth during your lifetime. You must have more comfort, you must have more peaceful life, living standards, enjoy the life, because life is only for one period. You can't get the same life later on. Even if you want, you will not get. So therefore, life is coming only once. You must utilize it very effectively. Wealth created is first for you. Please remember this golden rule. Wealth I create, it is for me first, for my family, for my usage. Whatever left, that can be given to somebody else who is dependent on my wealth. But don't starve for wealth. Don't live uncomfortable life because you want to save some money, somebody's money, some amount for somebody. That is not your purpose of life. Purpose of life to enjoy the life as it comes. Use it peacefully, purposefully, live happily, spend happily. You are not here to accumulate like a accumulating machine for somebody. That is not going to help. That is not your purpose of life. Therefore, don't worry more about your other people. Little you keep, whatever best possible. But don't keep everything for them and starve and go off. That is not correct. Enjoy the life. Therefore, I said proper retirement plan should be done. So, friends, I have told 8 important steps which are very significant to summarize, prepare a budget, and have a financial goals ready, have a saving strategy in place, have a better investment long term, medium term, then manage your taxes effectively, because each rupee tax saved is equal to each rupee earned. Use wealth earned judiciously. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify the placing of eggs into different baskets so that you can minimize the risk and maximize the return. And last step, as I said, plan effectively for retirement and enjoy the life peacefully thereafter. And wealth created is for you and your family. And don't keep a substantial portion of the wealth to somebody who is dependent on you, but enjoy the life during your lifetime. Enjoy the wealth during your lifetime. That is also a very significant step. I have covered 8 important steps. I hope it is clear to you. Now, in the last leg of my presentation, I would like to mention there are 5 do nots. There are 5 do nots. What is that 5 do nots? You are not supposed to do 5 steps in financial management. Means don't do in financial management. Do not we call it as. One is don't take heavy debt. Use the word, I am using the word heavy debt. You can take a minimum debt, normal debt, but you cannot take a heavy debt. Don't become a heavy debt oriented fellow. No heavy debt. That is the most important do nots in the financial management. Because debt has its own risk and it will kill the peace of your life also, peace of the family also. It will it will create a, what is called as worry for EMI payment. Many a time fixed earners, income oriented people, even big people who are earning income, use money. Their worry at the end of the month is EMI management. First 10 days, they are going to manage only EMI. That is called EMI fever. Don't create that. Therefore, don't go for a big debt. That is my requirement. Therefore, it is one of the first do nots. Second, don't lend to your private people, friends, near dear. Even though you have money, don't lend. Say no. How to say no, you must learn. Many a time you always say SS, don't say SS. No, not possible to lend. Though I have money, I can't give. Why? 20% of the money may come back to you with return. 80% money may not come to you in a way you require it. Therefore, why to get into more blood pressure, more get into litigation, stressing your life and all that. Don't lend. Therefore, do not lend. You help. Give 50,000, give 1 lakh, but don't lend. This is the policy. Therefore, do not. That too, lending to a private people, friends, known people is very risky. Don't do that. That is the second do nots. Third one is don't panic on financial matters. There is no question of panic. It is not like a one-time picnic. Financial planning is not one-time picnic. It is everyday picnic, everyday peaceful living. Therefore, you must take the financial matter peacefully. No panic at all. So if you take panic, knee-jerk, unnecessary, it will have a toll on the health. Therefore, don't take panic on financial matters. Financial matters should be discussed with every family member. Don't hide financial assets, financial obligations. You must discuss. By discussing, your lighter things will come and everybody will be happy to know that. And the panic situation in finance matters should be avoided. That is the third do nots. Fourth, you must know very well that one size does not fit all. Supposing I may have a different financial planning. Another person may have a different financial planning. Another madam has a financial planning. The same financial planning does not fit all. It means one size does not fit all. Therefore, no comparison. No comparison. See the life of a principal who is so luxurious. I am a faculty member. I am not so luxurious. Don't compare it. So personal financial management is not for comparison. Nobody is a model fellow here. Nobody a role model fellow as far as this matter is concerned. Because one size does not fit all. This is very important. You have your own financial management effectively. You have your own personal financial management in a meaningful manner. Don't have one size fitting to everybody. That is not possible. Okay. And last do not see is don't go for high returns of investment. If somebody gives 2% per month, investment return, don't go for it. Because who will give money without sacrifice of the principal? You won't give. High return is not possible in present day. All over the world, the return has come down. It is negative. Only India and China and some other Philippines, Singapore, some other small countries are giving a return of 5%, 6%, 8%. Even then, India is the best way to get more returns. So you want to aim for a high return and investment. That is not going to help. Don't be panic about the finance management. Don't go always about the high return. Aim for a minimum or a balanced return that will keep you balanced one. These are the 5 do nots. One is no heavy debt, no lending to known and near and dear, though you have peak of money, plenty of money. Don't be panic on financial matters. And one size does not fit all. No comparison in financial management. Absolutely no role model as far as financial management is concerned. Don't go for high returns. Aim for a minimum or a balanced return. These are the 5 do nots. And lastly, I would like to say, manage your finance more effectively in a professional manner. Consult professional people to know more about financial management. Unless you consult, you will not be getting niceties of the financial management process, because it is a science and it is an art as well as the practice. Financial management is a science as well as it is an art, as well as it is a practice. Therefore, you must know from the experts and consult them. Consulting would help you to open up various gates of investment and risk minimizing. You can get maximum returns also. So I hope the deliberations are very clear to you. I have made it as simple as it is. It is not aimed only to the financial faculty member. It is to all faculty member who even they have not studied finance also, you can manage these things. So it is very simple, and I was not able to prepare a PPT. I'll try to send one note, maybe 1 or 2 page note to our college, and they will circulate it to all the participants. And I thank the principal and all the faculty member of first grade Government College of Kalgatigi for having ventured into inviting me to take this webinar, a way forward. Well done to all of you, and also extending a hand-holding support by our IMS faculty and all the members of the team of IMS for this cause is again appreciable. Let us do joint ventures and continue to share the knowledge and get multiplication of the knowledge so that you will learn more, enjoy more, peacefully live. Thank you very much. Any questions? I am here to suggest answers.
Thank you, sir. Now the
Yes.
session is open for question and answer. So actually we have received few questions, and for almost all the questions you have answered it. And
Okay.
we have 2 more questions. So Nargun sir has asked, can the employee claim relief under section 80G if he donates money to the institution in which he is working?
Yes, he can claim ATG benefit at the rate of 50% of the donation. Even though he is working in the same institute, he can give it, and he can claim the deduction under section 80G. But here the point is that the institute should be registered under the income tax law. They should have a registration certificate under section 12A as well as 80G. If they have these 2 certificates, they are eligible to get donation deducted up to 50% of the actual donation made. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
ATG certificate should be there.
Okay, sir. Last question, sir. Preeti Patil madam has asked,
Hello.
like she
Hello,
wants
sir.
to know.
Yeah. Yes.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello. Yes, ma'am. You can ask question, ma'am.
Yes, you can ask, no problem.
Yeah. Like Preeti Patil madam, she wants to know how beneficial is home loan taken for second home construction?
Yeah, now as per the Income Tax Amendment Act, for last 2 years, there is amendment, and that amendment says anybody can own 2 houses. Earlier, the amendment was different. Now the amendment is very clear. They can have 2 houses. So if they invest in construction of a second house, assuming that the first house is self-occupied, second house they want to invest.
Hello. Say your call is muted.
Hello.
Is it clear now?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So, is it clear now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
So, in case you take loan for second house and utilize the same house as let out purpose, wherein you get rent. So, if you receive rental income from the second let out property, assuming that the first house is self-occupied, you can claim interest on loan taken to construct a second house. That is permitted. Number 1 benefit you will get. Second benefit is against the rent of whatever rent you receive for 1 year, 30% of that one is deducted without any inquiry. So 30% of that one is deducted. Supposing you have 3 lakh rupee rent, 30% of that one comes to 90,000. Only on 2 lakh 10,000 is remaining. On that you have to pay income tax minus your income, interest paid on the loan taken. As you may pay interest at the rate of 1,50,000 per year. So net income liable for second let out property is only 60,000 rupees. 2,10,000 minus 1,50,000 interest paid, you can pay only tax on 60,000 rupees. It is advisable to own second house, and it is better to give only let out, because 2 self-occupied properties are not allowed Please remember this. Supposing somebody will say, myself and my spouse is staying in one house, my parents are staying in another house. That is not possible, because you can have only one self-occupied property. Interest on loan paid only on one self-occupied property is deductible up to 2 lakh rupees maximum in 1 year. So second house property, even though you purchase it out of the loan amount and use it by your parents as self-occupied property, you are not eligible to get any deduction as far as the interest is concerned. Therefore, if you purchase second house property or construct second house property, or on the same floor you construct a one floor, first floor it's another house property, if you let out, more benefit of maximum benefit is available under the Income Tax Act. In other words, let out properties are eligible to get maximum benefit under the Income Tax Act in the form of deduction of interest on loan, as well as the 30% deduction against the self-occupied property, let out property income. So that is the point I want to mention. You can go ahead for that. Okay.
Thank you, sir. One more last question, sir. Can government employees claim for a travel expenditure clause?
Travel expenditure is for everybody, whether it's a government employee, semi-government employee, private employee, everybody. If he is not reimbursed, supposing assume he is reimbursed, say assume 1,000 rupees per month is given in a part of salary, he can claim it as spent under section 10 into bracket 14. That is the point I said. Supposing assume he has claimed about 3,000 per month traveling expenditure, but now he can claim up to 1,600 per month because of the ceiling put under section 10 into bracket 14. That is actual traveling expenditure incurred or 1,600 per month, that is allowed. So he can claim any of those. Traveling expenses is permitted to everybody. Please remember, irrespective of the class of employees. Okay.
No. Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Now,
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir. Hello.
Hello.
Sir. Myself Shailaja. Sir.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, that traveling expenses altogether has to up to 1,50,000. No, sir. It should not be beyond that.
No, no, no. Traveling expense.
within
No, no. You are confusing. Traveling expenses is not covered under section 80C. 80C talks of 1,50,000 rupees. Please remember, traveling expenses is allowed under section 10 into bracket 14. It is a different section. 10 into bracket 14 of the Income Tax Act. It is not covered under 80C. That 1,50,000 also you are eligible, plus its actual traveling expenditure up to 1,600 per month also eligible under section, different section it is 10 into bracket 14 of the Income Tax Act. Okay, that is different. This is different. Yes.
Okay, sir. And that effective tax rate, what you have said, the this one formula. For what purpose we need to keep that?
Tax
Whether
planning.
For saving or
No, it is for tax planning. Supposing what is the point in paying 31.2% without planning? You tell me. So it is not going to help. Therefore, if you make proper planning of taxes, minimizing the taxes by better investment, better expenditure, you can reduce the effective rate of tax from 31.2% to 20% or 21% or less than 20% also. So difference between the maximum rate of tax and effective rate of tax is nothing but savings you have made in tax in that particular year. To know how you are saving, for that purpose of taxes, effective rate determination is important. Okay. And effective rate of taxation equal to total taxes paid divided by taxable income into 100. You will find that. Each year only once you have to calculate this. Okay. Yes. Next, any other question?
Thank you, sir.
Any other question? No?
no, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your valuable insights on personal financial management. And I'm sure your address will help us a lot to understand the personal financial management at this current situation. You have given us you have told us how to minimize the risk to maximize the return. And for that, you have said all the 8 points, which is very useful and which is very applicable also. And even you have said 5 do nots also, which we should not do. You have said us to how to manage the personal financial things in our personal life. Thank you very much, sir. It was very valuable session. Thank you, sir. So now I would like to request Professor G.C. Gumgolmat, sir, to give presidential remark for today's webinar. Sir, your call is, yeah.
Madam, audible?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah. Respected Charantiman sir, Dr. Srinivas Patil sir, Professor Suvarna Hiremat madam, my colleague Professor Shailaja and Preeti Patil, and our KGCTA Zonal President Dr. Basavaraj Tallur sir. First of all, I don't want to prolong the session as the session carried by Dr. Charantiman sir was very informative, very fruitful. So first of all, I want to congratulate Dr. Charantiman sir for his valuable suggestion, particularly for our teaching community who has explained about personal financial management, very informative. 8 steps, what we have to do and do's, and what we don't want to do. Don't 5 points which he has explained, very fruitful. So on behalf of our college and my colleagues and IAMS B School, once again I congratulate Dr. Charantimat sir, who is also our alumni president. That is Murtunjay College. I am also a student of Murtunjay College. Sir is our alumni president. Sir, once again, I congratulate very informative message given by you. So I once again congratulate Dr. Srinivas Patil and Professor Suvarna Hiremat madam, and I congratulate my colleague Shailaja and Preeti Patil and our journal president Dr. Basavaraj Tallur. So I thank one and all for the successful completion of this webinar. So thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to request Professor Suvarna Hiremat to give vote of thanks.
Hello. Hello. A very good afternoon, everyone. Honorable CA Dr. N.A. Charantimat sir, Chairman KES and IEMS Hubli. Respected Dr. Srinivas R. Patil sir, Director KES IEMS. Professor G.C. Gumgolmat, Principal Government First Grade College Kalgatgi. Dr. Basavaraj Tallur, Assistant Professor, Government First Grade College Dharwad. Professor Shailaja Huddar ma'am. Participants and all the faculty colleagues, a very good afternoon. It's my privilege to propose vote of thanks on this occasion of webinar on personal financial management, a very interesting and apt topic for right now. I, on behalf of KS IMS MBA College and Government First Grade College Kalgatgi, and on my own behalf, I would like to extend a very hearty thanks to today's resource person, CA Dr. N.A. Charantimat sir, for enriching our knowledge on various aspects of personal financial management. Thank you, sir. Also, I would like to extend my gratitude to Dr. Srinivas R. Patil sir, Director KES IEMS, and Professor G.C. Gumgolmat sir, Principal Government First Grade College, Kalgatgi, for extending their support for conducting this webinar. Thank you, sir. I also wish to express my gratitude to Dr. Basavaraj Tallur sir, Zonal President, KGCTA, KUD Zone, for their encouragement for conducting this webinar. Thank you, sir. And heartfelt thanks to coordinator of this event, Professor Shailaja Huddar ma'am, GFGC Kalgatigi. Thank you, ma'am. Also, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to all the participants for the enthusiastic participation and making this event a successful one. Also, I would like to thank all the faculties of KES IEMS and GFGC Kalgatigi for their continuous support in making this webinar a great success. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the people who have directly or indirectly contributed for the success of this webinar. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So before winding up the session, I would like to inform to all the participants, like feedback link will be sent to the group, and please fill the feedback link based on the data which is available. The certificate will be sent to your email ID. Thank you.
ಹಲೋ
ಹಲೋ,
ಸೆಷನ್ ಇದೆ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಇನ್ನು?
ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಓವರ್ ಆತ್ರಿ.
ಹಾ.
ನಾನು ಸುವರ್ಣ ಮೇಡಮ್ ವೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕತ್ತೇನೆ, ಅವ್ರು ಏನಾರ
ಹೌದು.
ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೇನೋ ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಇಂದ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ.
Can I leave the
ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್. ಹಾ ಸರ್, ಶೋರ್
Okay,
ಸರ್.
thank
ಹಾ
Sir, thank you,
Hello,
sir. Thank you,
hello.
sir. Hello.
ಹಾ, madam, sir,
Madam.
ಹೇಳಿ.
Madam.
ಸುವರ್ಣ
sir,
madam.
ಏನಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Madam, ಹೇಳ್ರಿ.
ಮೇಡಮ್, ಇದು ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಸಿಬಲ್ ಅದ ಅಲ್ಲ, ನಾ ಪೇಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೀನಿ, ಬಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೂ ಗ್ರೂಪಿಗೆ ಹಾಕೋಣ.
ಎಸ್ ಮೇಡಮ್, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವಿಸಿಬಲ್. ನೀವು ಒಂದ್ಸರಿ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಡ್ರಿ.
ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕೇನ್ರಿ, ಚಾಟ್ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಇತ್ತಲ್ರಿ?
ಹಾ, ಇದೆ ರೀ ಮೇಡಮ್, ಚಾಟ್ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಿದೆ.
ಓಕೆ
Yes,
ಮೇಡಮ್,
madam.
ಓಕೆ. ಸೊ
Yes, madam.
ಶಾಲ್ ವಿ ವೈಂಡ್ ಅಪ್? I'll
Yes,
call you
madam.
later then.
Yes,
Okay,
definitely,
okay.
madam. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
ma'am.
you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll call you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you for all members. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. ಎಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ
ವಿಶಾಲಾಕ್ಷಿ.